Welcome everybody back into Nerd Sesh. As always, I'm Carson Breber and alongside me is Logan Camden. And today we've got a lot of great basketball to talk about because yesterday was a wild day in the National Basketball Association, and particularly the nightcap, Logan, was the craziest game of all. Nuggets Timberwolves, such a great rivalry in today's NBA. Nikola Jokic makes history, notching the third 60-point triple-double ever in the NBA, and yet in the final moments the Nuggets blow a hugely important game. And specifically, Logan, there's one guy really who blows it, and that's Russell Westbrook. What do you have to say about his really choking this game away in spite of that historic Jokic performance?
I mean, it was such an uphill battle for Denver in this game, considering the circumstances that Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. were out. So it's even more crucial that you just finish the job. I mean, it would have been a huge morale boost for them, a huge win in general, just being down two of your, four best players, depending on what you think of Aaron Gordon and how he factors into that. But it was an absurd ending sequence to this game. Jokic gets fouled on a jump ball tied at 138. He gets a free throw to break the tie to put the Nuggets up one. The next possession, Minnesota gets the ball in the corner to Anthony Edwards. He gets trapped by Gordon and Watson. They force a turnover and a fast break with 15 seconds left. They get the ball to Christian Brown. Brown kicks it to Westbrook on the fast break. Should be an easy layup. Put the game on ice. Go up 141-138. Westbrook smokes the open layup. And then, to make matters worse, you're still up 1 point. They get a last-second three-point attempt in the corner to Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who had a phenomenal game. He always plays the Nuggets really, really well. And Russell Westbrook fouls him on the three-point attempt. And the foul was so late, too, it gave the Nuggets fans that false hope, too, that, we just won this game. We just stole it. And then, wham, you get 3 free throws to close the game out. N.A. knocks down 2 of them to put them over the top and to seal the win for Minnesota. One, classic Russell Westbrook. I've never been a huge Westbrook guy. I've actually been really, really pleased with what the Nuggets have gotten out of him for the majority of this year. I think he's been really good for Denver, but it's what I said at the timing of the signing, in the offseason. You're going to have games like this. It is just an inherent part of the Russell Westbrook experience, sadly. And you know what, Carson? I'm not even mad about the layup. I was at the moment. I think you can have your gripes about the layup. The thing I was maddest and most angry about was the fact that he didn't get back in transition quickly enough, and that's why the foul happened.
Yep.
It's in a moment like that where you can't sit, you can't feel sorry for self. You got to pick yourself up off the canvas, off the ground, and you got to hustle your ass back in transition to get set up, and that's why the foul happened. That's the thing I'm most angry with Westbrook about, is because for a moment there, he sits and he's upset with himself. We've all been there. We've all blown layups. I get it. You can't feel sorry for yourself. You got to get back, and what happens? Ant sprints down the court like a madman to the left wing. Russ is trailing. Ant has just enough time to get the ball out to the corner to N.A. And because Russ wasn't already back and set up in that bottom right corner in the baseline, he had to full-out sprint to close out on the shooter, and that recklessness, that burst, is what ends up getting him under the feet and drawing the foul call. So, look, it's all compounded, right? The layup turns into the snowball, into this avalanche, into the three-pointer, but it's if Russ just doesn't hesitate that moment after the layup and just gets back and sets up on defense, I got to think that he sets up on defense to either intercept the pass or to just contest the jump shot regularly, and the Denver Nuggets escape a double OT game with a huge victory without 2 of their 4 best players. It's a super demoralizing loss. It's one that was in the palm of their hands, and they let it slip through. And, Westbrook isn't the only culprit, but to lose a game in the way that they did it, where it's there for the taking, it's such a gut punch, man. And, like I said, I'm more disappointed with the defensive effort than the missed layup.
I would agree that the defensive effort was the most egregious part, but in totality on both ends, it's just such a disastrously low basketball IQ stretch in the clutch, which unfortunately, as you said, Russ is always capable of giving you a sort of disastrous stretch like this, just with his decision-making, his self-awareness, his overall basketball IQ really is, and unfortunately always has been, quite low. And it starts with the transition chance where you feel that both he and Christian Brown are guys who are at their most comfortable in transition as athletes. They do not want to be caught shooting clutch free throws. And so they're going to try to actually get a field goal attempt up. And I think that obviously Russ is the one who puts up the layup, but Christian Braun is also the one who feeds him the ball. And like clearly they're trying to take advantage of this 2-on-1, but that's just always a risk, man. It's always a risk when you take a shot in the field of play. And not only are you not eating up more clock, but you allow the opposing team to now potentially get a transition opportunity of their own. You don't have your set defense like you would after free throws. And I just think the right approach there is slow up, dribble back out to the perimeter, eat up some clock. Ideally, wait for Nikola Jokic to catch up to the play, get him the ball, he shoots the free throws. And at that point, you feel like you're very, very likely to go up 3 and have taken some more time off the clock. So I thought they mismanaged it on that end, but then you hit on it, man. I mean, after the missed layup, Russ just lingers on the stanchion for a full second, and he's fully trailing the play at that point. Minnesota has a 5-on-4, and even as Russ drifts back into the play, he's kind of just trailing Julius Randle. Like, he's not really in a position to make any sort of impact defensively. Nickeil Alexander-Walker is wide open the entire time. And then at the last second, Russ just has to try to fly in there with a pretty reckless closeout, and he fouls him on what was still a tough leaning 3. Like, you just have to make NAW make that shot. After all of the mistakes that he had made to lead up to that moment, at least make him hit the leaning 3. Do not just send him to the line to give him free points. It's just really, really a shame that he was so disastrous in those final moments, because it was such a monumentally great performance by Jokic. And this would have been such an important win for the Nuggets in the standings. They would have been 1 game back from the 2 seed if they had won. Now, instead, they're only half a game up on the 4 seed. And you really want to stay out of that 4 seed, because that means you're seeing OKC in the second round. And I think what this tells you big picture is something that has become increasingly clear as the year has gone along, which is just that Russ's minutes are going to drop by more and more in the playoffs. I have been overall this year so impressed by his performance in Denver. I really have. His ability to fit with Jokic, their 2-man game, his willingness to be extremely active and effective as a cutter. Like, I do think this is the smartest, most efficient basketball that Russell Westbrook has ever played. It's the most flexible that he's ever been offensively. But when you get to these high-stakes matchups, his lack of shooting is still a major red flag, and we have seen teams exploit that with just super aggressively doubling Jokic and ignoring Russ off ball as a shooter. You can bait him at times on ball into taking pull-up jumpers that are just a massive win for the defense, because Russ is so inefficient there. If you just totally play off him, I mean, I think of the Kings game where Jonas Valanciunas is just completely denying Jokic in the post. He's on Russell Westbrook, but ignoring him, and Russ just takes a couple of pull-up middies, and it's like, dude, you're shooting 25% from mid-range. Like, that major limitation he has as a shooter, and the potential for him to shoot you out of those games, it's just too problematic for him to be like a really big minute guy in the playoffs. And then you have to think about stuff like this as well. The decision making, the basketball IQ in the big clutch moments. I just trust Russell Westbrook less than a whole lot of other guys out there, and I would not want him on the floor in one of those huge closing playoff moments. So it's kind of a bummer, because like in so many ways this year has been a redemption for Russ, and it's the best basketball that he's played in a long time, and it's been such a great fit for him, but he still has those same fatal flaws, and this game very much reflected that.
Yeah, I don't think we can be surprised, but I think he's been a net positive for Denver this season, and I don't want to completely wipe that or wash that away from Russ. I think he's been overall a plus for them. It's really disappointing this happened. I thought it might rear its ugly head in the playoffs, and so maybe this is a blessing in disguise for Denver that you kind of get this one out of the way and just prepare yourself mentally for the fact that you are going to have to maybe reel him in a little bit when it comes playoff time. In closing minutes, you just axe him. You don't have him at all in the lineup. Like, I don't know. In a way, I am glad that this happened before the playoffs, but I think you got to be wary that this could happen again. That being said, I don't think Russ's disaster class was the only reason that Denver lost this game. I think that it's a big reason why. Obviously, he completely, gave away 2 possessions at the end of this game. But to me, other areas in which Denver let themselves down. There's a lot of other ones. The extra possessions were the biggest thing to me. Minnesota, I don't know if I've ever seen a disparity quite like this. They attempted 25 more field goals than Denver, 111 to 86. They beat them on the glass. Minnesota does Denver 21-8. They beat them in rebounding period 52 to 45, and they double them in second chance points. And I thought that was really problematic. Some of that is just bad bounces. The Timberwolves were short on a lot of three-point attempts, and they just got balls to bounce their way. But I thought they had more fight than Denver in this game, where they were swarming the boards. And so I think that's a shortcoming for Denver in this game, like effort categories, athletic disadvantages that they are just so clearly at against Minnesota. Like, Minnesota has a massive athletic advantage against them. They have a massive depth advantage against Denver. Denver's down two of their four key players. We get a boatload of Zeke Naji minutes in this one, right? We see Jalen Pickett. And the other thing that, again, has been a consistent problem with Denver in this game that I think has been a problem all year, three-pointers made. Minnesota beats them by 21 points on threes. Players not named Jokic or Gordon made 2 threes in this game. Christian Brown made one, and Jalen Pickett made one. And so I just feel like all the significant flaws that Denver has kind of reared their ugly head in this one. The lack of depth, the athletic disadvantages, the three-point shootings. And ironically, they lose by 1 point in double OT because they've got the best player on planet Earth putting the team on his back. And so I guess that would be the one thing that I would say is the saving grace for Denver in the large context of this. Luka Doncic and James Harden are the only 2 players in NBA history to record a 60-point triple-double. And again, down 2 of your 4 best players with a lot of disadvantages. You lose this game by 1 point in double OT that you gift to Minnesota because Russell Westbrook does. So there's a lot of negatives from this game, a lot of kind of stale problems that have been problems for Denver. But on the other side of the coin, it is kind of encouraging that Jokic is still capable of doing this, and you still do have the best player on the planet. But I thought you saw some real flaws just outside of Russell Westbrook in this game for Denver against all the teams, but specifically ones that they struggle with against Minnesota in this matchup.
I did think that you saw a number of the defensive issues that Denver has, specifically in this matchup, exposed in this game. But offensively, I thought that they were excellent, and that's just because Nikola Jokic had one of those all-time performances, man. He did it without MPJ on the floor, without Jamal Murray, and particularly what was so outstanding about this performance from him was the outside shooting, which has been the biggest difference in Jokic's game from this year compared to last year. Him averaging 1.2 points per jump shot, just being absurdly efficient, particularly from beyond the arc all year. And the way that he was weaponizing that most in this game was through inverted pick and roll, which the Nuggets came out the gates running a lot of. Jokic ran 12 inverted pick and rolls in this game, generated 17 points on them, so phenomenal efficiency out of those actions. And particularly when Rudy Gobert is trying to go under these screens set for Jokic so they don't have to switch it and give Jokic a mismatch, like he's just nailing these wide open threes. And then you have him screening, and when the Timberwolves are trying to play drop coverage, Jokic is popping and he just can't miss. So like, I do think that that is how the best offensive player ever has gotten even better this year. Him increasing his volume and increasing his efficiency as a three-point shooter has just been so effective. And once Gobert fouled out of this game, Jokic was literally getting whatever he wanted. Like, he was an auto double out of the post because you have possessions where Randall is trying to deal with him on an island or Ant has to deal with him on an island, and he's literally just backing his way down 6-8 feet from the basket and putting up a touch shot that's automatic. And honestly, I saw Julius Randle say this post-game, but like Jokic even missed a couple of bunnies in this game. Like, he could have had 65 plus. So it's an incredible offensive performance, one of the best of the year. But on the flip side, like you said, there are a number of problems that Denver has defensively that Minnesota exposed, not in this game, but that they just continue to expose in this matchup. And it's really the reason that they swept Denver this regular season. It's all about what Minnesota is doing offensively. It's not about Denver's offense struggling to produce. they can't guard Anthony Edwards. And Anthony Edwards was excellent in this game. He consistently plays his best basketball against Denver this year, has averaged 31.5, 5 and 7 on 63% true shooting against the Nuggets. Phenomenal. And Peyton Watson, Aaron Gordon, these guys just can't stay in front of him. We know that Denver doesn't have that elite point of attack defender with the sort of high-end quickness that's needed to try to deal with an Anthony Edwards. So that's a big problem. But his shot making down the stretch was also just phenomenal. And I thought his basketball IQ in this game was really impressive. A lot of that was his playmaking, but also he has two phenomenal cuts in overtime. One where Peyton Watson is just overplaying him, thinking that he's going to take the ball coming over top with a handoff, and instead he cuts back, gets an open layup. And then another one after he was dealing with the blitz, passed out of it, and then immediately for that split second when the defense falls asleep, he cuts and gets himself an easy basket. So that was really impressive. And then I thought that he was really, really good playmaking when he saw two in this game. And I just think, particularly against Denver, he's gotten so comfortable with their pick and roll coverage of consistently bringing two up to the level, forcing him to make those reads and make those passes because they do it basically every time. Like, they can't deal with him in any other way. They can't play Jokic in a deep drop coverage. None of their point attack defenders are really high-level screen navigators, so like they're just going to consistently have to send two to the ball, and Ant has just been able to basically dissect the Nuggets when they do that, and obviously ends up making a game-winning find to Nickeil Alexander-Walker in this game. So I thought that he was really impressive, and I think that if we were to see this in a playoff series again this year, which is possible, everything that Denver has to figure out is on the defensive end, because I thought that there was some other weird stuff going on there for them in this game. Like, they had Nikola Jokic on Julius Randle for the majority of this game. That was his primary matchup, and I'm presuming that the idea there was keep Jokic out of pick and roll with Ant as much as possible, right? Thinking that they'll primarily use Gobert as the screener, but instead they just used Randle as a screener a bunch, hardly used Gobert as a screener at all, and they just had Randle pop over and over again.
Like you're
and
kind of playing into their hand with that strategy.
Yeah, I mean, Jokic was just too slow to close out often after initially showing on Ant and didn't get a ton of good contests, and Julius Randle got a lot of open looks from deep. So I did not like the strategy of having Jokic on Randle because that also presented a huge issue on the glass. As you mentioned, I mean, why is there such a glaring differential on the offensive boards? The Nuggets letting up 21 offensive rebounds. A big part of that issue is that you're putting Aaron Gordon or you're putting any other wing on Gobert, and he's going to kill you on the glass. Gobert had 6 offensive rebounds in this game. So part of it, as you mentioned, was athletes playing super hard, right? Jaden McDaniels has 5 offensive rebounds in this game, but particularly Gobert killed them there. And another part, I think, of why the Minnesota team rebounded so well offensively is because Jokic, not on Gobert for a majority of this game, is out in space so much defensively, and so the entire team for Minnesota is better positioned to get some extra opportunities because the Nuggets' best defensive rebounder by far isn't holding things down in the paint. So I did not like that. If I'm Denver and I'm looking at this in the context of a full series, I'm just matching up conventionally. Like, I'm putting Jokic on Gobert. I'm putting Aaron Gordon on Randle. I'm putting Christian Brown on Anthony Edwards. And I still think that, like, you just don't match up well defensively against Minnesota. Like, you just don't have somebody who can guard Ant. And consistently having to put 2 on the ball with Jokic as your pick and roll big is going to present issues because you're going to let up a lot of wide open threes to a team that has been efficient shooting from beyond the arc. But I still think that that's the better option than what they were trying in this game.
I do, but that's kind of my big takeaway from this series this year, from the playoff series that we got last year. I don't think Denver has a good answer to match up with Minnesota. And increasingly, as the league gets more and more talented, as teams become deeper and deeper, as the margins get closed between teams, it very much so is way more matchup dependent on who teams draw than it is who has the best player, right? Because 99% of series, I would go, well, Nikola Jokic is the best player on planet Earth. I'm going to take the Nuggets to win, right? That's pretty simple logic. Doesn't apply here against Minnesota. I think they've got their number. I think they've got the recipe to match up against Denver. It's not like Denver's going to keel over and die. It's going to be an easy series. No, it's going to be a dogfight. The reigning MVP, one of the greatest players I've ever seen, he's not going to go down without a fight. It will probably go 6 or 7 games, but I don't think I would lean on the side of Denver. I think I would take Minnesota to beat them. I just think that, like you said, Anthony Edwards, I don't think Denver has anybody who can hold up with him in single coverage. I think that's a massive problem. I think that Minnesota defensively has the personnel to make life really, really hard on Denver superstars, right? Jamal Murray, not super athletic, right? Limited in terms of his shot creation individually outside of Jokic. If it's Michael Porter Jr., who also has similar limitations, I think they've got the defensive personnel to make life hard on them. And Minnesota's really been figuring out this fit and their identity over this recent stretch. Julius Randle still scares the hell out of me in the context of a playoff series, but I'll give him credit in this game. Was knocking down open shots, wasn't doing too much, and really playmaked, I thought, really well in this game. And so I think Minnesota's got their number. I would take them in a hypothetical series against Denver right now, and I'm disappointed, man. Just to be so close in double O, it's just such a gut-wrenching, heart-breaking loss, man.
Yeah, and I think obviously for Denver, you do have to, again, consider the context that they're down 2 of their 4 best players, but that doesn't really impact the defensive equation here because actually they're getting Peyton Watson on the floor for 4 minutes, who's a very good defensive player, right? So offensively, we know that they're going to be able to deliver against anybody. The questions are defensively, how can they deal with this Minnesota offense that has posted a 127 offensive rating against Denver across their 4 matchups this season. And I thought that there were a couple of really poor defensive efforts from Denver if you look at the second and third meetings between these two teams, but it's much deeper than that. And if you look at what they were doing with Jokic defensively in this game, I mentioned having him on Randle for a majority of it. I did like their adjustment in overtime where Gobert is fouled out. And instead of having Jokic on Randle at that point, they put him on Jaden McDaniels. To me, that is a much more effective choice because you're not nearly as worried about Jaden McDaniels being used as a screener, right, and getting a ton of open pick and pop threes like Randle was. That's just not his game. The problem there, though, is now you're dealing with like Christian Brown on Julius Randle, and Randle played some real bully ball on him. And the whole idea of keeping Jokic off of Gobert, off of the primary screener is, well, we think that we can then switch everything, right? Like if we have Aaron Gordon on Gobert and they bring him into the action, well, Aaron Gordon can switch out onto Anthony Edwards, and we don't think that Gobert is going to punish us for switching because he's not that sort of mismatch attacker, but where he does punish you is on the offensive glass. And he just got a couple of easy spoon-fed finishes in this game because the Nuggets are too aggressive in terms of their pick and roll coverage, and they cannot contain the ball without sending 2. So it's very problematic, man. It's very problematic. I do think that they are going to probably have to just play things kind of straight up and conventional, but Ant goes off in this matchup. Julius Randle has played really well against Denver, and they've let up a lot of open threes in this matchup, again, mostly because they have to be so aggressive in terms of their pick and roll coverage. And then Minnesota can easily match their size, and they can kind of bully them, and they're just more athletic. So it's a very, very bad matchup for them. Like Denver absolutely does not want this in the playoffs. They do not want to see the Timberwolves. There's no question about that. I would probably view it as basically a toss-up if we were to walk into a playoff series between these two games. And obviously Minnesota has had their number this year. I do still have so much faith in Denver's offense, and I do wonder if they could do a better job on Julius Randle. I think that matching up Aaron Gordon with him for a full game, like he's a very good physical counter, and can you sort of induce Randle into some of his worst tendencies? That's where I think that Denver's offense is just more reliably great, but it's a very bad matchup for them. It is.
It is. And the thing that I keep thinking about is what we talked about on our last mailbag episode is, should they pivot in the offseason, and should they try to get somebody with a different archetype that really works? Like, I know you threw out the potential Wiggins deal if you were able to move him for MPJ. I threw out one where the money didn't work 1-to-1, but you could work something out with the Blazers for a Jeremy Grant and a Denny Avdia. Like, it just really seems like you're seeing the shortcomings, the holes in the roster for Denver, right? Because offensively, I still love it. I mean, Jokic can manufacture such good shots for guys around him that if you put two elite shooters like MPJ and Murray alongside him, they're going to produce great results. But it just seems like the shortcomings of those guys athletically and defensively are rearing their ugly head, in which really swings the tide of this potential series in the favor of Minnesota. So I think toss-up's a good way to put it, but I would go with Minnesota in 7.
When it comes to the MPJ point and his future with this team, I would love an MPJ for Wiggins trade if I'm Denver at this point. Like, I proposed that last show. The more I've thought about it, I just think things have to change. They have to improve defensively on the perimeter. They have to get more athletic there. Any player is going to get an offensive boost playing alongside Jokic, and you're not going to win the title if you're 21st in defensive rating. It just doesn't happen. They are too limited defensively right now, and I trust them to be an elite offense, even if they were to lose something going from an MPJ to Wiggins on that. And I think you more than offset it with what you gain offensively, and the fact that I think Wiggins would look better offensively. It'd be the easiest role of his life offensively, playing in this Nugget system alongside Jokic. So, big picture for Denver, I think that's probably a decision that they're going to have to make. There was another great game last night, though, Logan, and that was the Golden State Warriors taking out the Memphis Grizzlies. Steph Curry having 50, I thought for sure was going to go down as the performance of the night until Jokic went out there and did his thing. But what did you take away from that Warriors win over Memphis?
I mean, the Warriors are deadly. Like, I'm not surprised that Steph can still do this. Like, he was in my top 10 for a reason. I mean, anytime he can turn back the clock and give you one of these, it's a special performance. There's nothing quite like it. Like, you're just never safe with Steph. He never stops moving. It has to be the most demoralizing opponent to face in the sport. Like, I couldn't believe after some of the shots that he was hitting, Carson, that we didn't see the Grizzlies bench just, like, put their head down. Because I think that's what I'd do. Like, there's nothing you can do sometimes. And specifically, the Warriors running this three-man game is nearly impossible to stop when Steph is on like this, because you've just seen this commitment from Draymond and Jimmy, them working together in sync to just get Steph open looks. It's something special and something that's really hard to defend because all of these guys are so intelligent. The Dubs might have the smartest trio in basketball. Like, all of these guys are so brilliant. The craziest three to me in sequence that I enjoyed the most in this game was Dre is coming down on a fast break, and Dre no looks a pass. He's looking at the left baseline, no looks a pass to Jimmy, who's trailing him in transition. Jimmy kicks the ball out to the corner where it's the right read, but Jalen Wells is also playing great defense on Steph. Steph's already hit, like, I don't know, 7 threes at this point, so they're sticking to him like glue off ball. Mm-hmm. Wells disrupts the pass. He does his job. He makes sure that Steph can't make a clean catch. The ball bounces perfectly to Steph. Steph grabs the ball and in one motion just completely resets and puts the shot up, and it's butter. You just saw it on full display right there, and then there's a sequence not long after that, because I think that was the end of the second quarter, and then early in the third quarter, there's another set in the corner. Jimmy is initiating the pick and roll. He gets a screen from Dre. He kicks it back out to Dre. Dre gives a little DHO to Steph for another three. It's like this three-man game with these three legends is just so hard to stop when they're all on the same page and they're all so in sync and they're all working together. Like, that's the big thing to me, is it's not two men anymore. It's like it's so much harder to defend that when you've got the third guy and they're all working in tandem. And the final component is Steph Curry. Because it's like I can praise Jimmy and I can praise Dre for working together so smartly and working to get these shots and the collective intelligence. But Steph playing at this level is ultimately what gives you confidence and faith in this Warriors team of doing something of substance in the playoffs. Steph's going to have to play this way. I'm not talking a 50-burger every night, but he's going to have to give you, something close to 30, do it really, really efficiently, and he's going to have to go off and have some big games. And he's been playing so much better since his team has added Jimmy, and I just think it gives you this extra confidence that this team can do something something this year in the playoffs. I don't know if that's a conference finals run. I don't know if that's just getting out of the first round, but there's a chance this year in a way that I haven't felt about this team since the title year. And a classic Steph Curry performance, man. There's nothing quite like it, man. I think it's the most special thing in sports.
It is truly a one-of-a-kind experience, and this is just what the Dubs look like at their absolute best offensively. This wasn't their best defensive performance, even though they've been the number one defense in basketball since they traded for Jimmy Butler, so we know that they're excellent on that end. But offensively, it's just Steph with his one-of-one shot making, and his impact in this game is so much greater than even the 50 points reflect, because like the way that the Grizzlies are defending him once he really gets hot in this game is absolutely absurd. The level of defensive attention that he is drawing, the level of panic every single time he comes around a screen, every set of eyes is on him, multiple bodies are flying at him every time. So like when he's consistently drawing two, that's when Draymond is able to dissect the defense and pick apart 4-on-3s as a passer. That's when Jimmy is able to set a high screen for him and slip to the rim and be so effective as a finisher and get to the line a ton. Like, he's just creating great shots for everybody around him, and Jimmy and Dre are phenomenal complementary offensive pieces. That's what they do best. I thought one really interesting aspect of this game was the entire Zach Edey dynamic and the trade-off that Memphis was getting with him, because he is obviously one of the lumbering sort of bigs who Steph sees out of pick and roll and he just licks his lips, man, because Edey is trying to play in a legitimate drop coverage, which is not recommended against Steph Curry as the greatest pull-up three-point shooter that we've ever seen. And you're just relying on elite screen navigation because the point of attack defender has to get around that screen quickly enough that Steph can't just immediately pull an open three coming around it, because Edey's in a deep drop. He's not able to offer any resistance. So Steph was kind of barbecuing him like that. And then I thought Steph did a really nice job of forcing Edey switches. Like, there was one possession where Edey is in a deep drop and they funnel Steph into the paint, but he keeps his dribble alive. And now Edey has gone from help defender to being matched up with Steph. And so now you get a Steph isolation with Edey where he brings him out to the three-point line. He dances, he fillets him like that. So you feel like on the defensive end, Edey is unplayable just because of how exploitable he is in space versus Steph Curry. But at the same time, Edey has 16 boards. He has 4 blocks. And the Grizzlies were plus 13 in his minutes. And like, he is providing real positive value in a number of areas. Like, the Warriors can't finish at the rim when he's on the floor. This is a team that has struggled with rim finishing all year. They don't have a lot of big athletes, a lot of above the rim threats. Jimmy's helped there some, but like, Edey is a massive deterrent. He's an excellent pure rim protector there. And he bullies them on the boards when the Warriors are trying to play these small ball looks. And if he does play really good drop coverage, if Memphis collectively plays really good drop coverage where the screen navigation is excellent and they can sort of funnel Steph in to float arranger into the paint, then Edey really is an excellent deterrent there. So I thought that was an interesting reflection of like the duality that any team with one of those super big lumbering bigs is going to face up against the Warriors.
I think it'd be really fascinating to look at in a 7-game series.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because especially in a sample size that big, it would give you enough of a plus minus with Edey where you could really tell in this matchup, because I think Memphis Golden State would be one of the most interesting like stylistical differences in a first round series.
And to some extent it applies to any team that's going to try to go super big against the Warriors, or that has one like super big elite rebounder guy who can punish your lack of size on the offensive end and the offensive glass and bring that interior defensive value, but then isn't going to guard in space at such a high level. Edey's a very extreme example of it, but you still have some of that give and take even with like an Ivica Zubac, even though he's better guarding in space than Zach Edey. that's something that any team is going to have to kind of negotiate if they have that sort of big on their team, is how much are we trying to punish them for going small versus how much are they punishing us for having a big, slow guy like this on the floor. But bottom line, the Dubs just looked really scary, man. And this is the most combined points they've gotten from Steph and Jimmy. And you get a 13-point triple-double from Draymond. Both Pods and Moody made a couple of really clutch plays. Pods comes in with the big tip-in, and then Moody hits the three to basically put this thing on ice.
Pods has been so much better that they've simplified his role, dude. Just like he's such a... This is like the ideal role for him. Like, how many times the guy just crashes the glass when a shot goes... He's such a good connector, man.
He really is, and I really do like Pods. However, he does put up some of the worst shots that I've ever seen in my life.
I'm somewhere on that. I'm endeared to Pods because I'm somewhere on that Pods Dragic scale, depending on how my shot is falling.
I understand that, but some of the stuff that he attempts in the paint, like in this game, he took a wrong-footed lefty hook shot, basically, with Zach Edey all over him, and like the ball was blocked the second it came out of his hands. Like, he's got that nasty decel step, but sometimes his footwork is just so goofy.
Let me use it against the 7'4" guy, man.
Dude, because it's like sometimes he's literally moving in slow motion and that works, and then sometimes he's moving in slow motion and a better athlete just totally smothers him. So I do like Pods, but there's always some mixed results with him offensively. But I do think that he's an excellent fit in this starting five that the Dubs have been riding with, and that starting five has a plus 18 net rating in 133 minutes together. Like, really a phenomenal two-way group. You have shooting alongside your big three. You have guys who compete defensively, who grind and do the little things in Pods and Moody. And then I think that your big three complement each other so well. Steph and Jimmy and Dre all complement each other so well offensively. And Jimmy and Dre are such great defensive anchors together. And like, you just can't overstate how impressive the Warriors have been since they traded for Jimmy Butler. They're 18-2 when Steph and Jimmy play together, Logan. Steph Curry is giving you 28 points per game on 66% true shooting in those games and has had a number of absolute explosions. So clearly they're dangerous. Clearly they are a really, really tough first-round draw. And I do think that they're a top 5 team in the West, which now they are in the standings as well. But this was a very impressive win from them, because the schedule has been lighter. I mean, 18-2 is remarkable no matter what, but this is one of the better teams that they've beaten, this Memphis team.
They're just so damn brilliant, and I just love watching them. Like, it just reminds me so much of, it's like old man basketball. Like, I have such an appreciation for it, and obviously Steph's the guy that you have to start with, because again, all of this is made possible by him being the all-time offensive engine that he is. If Steph is not Steph, this doesn't work. Your offense isn't good enough. It really is him that's putting it on his back. But again, man, the collective IQ, and they're all just committed to winning and manufacturing a good look. In every possession, I just feel I feel so safe with the Warriors, man. I feel they just get it. They just get it. I love old man basketball. I love how brilliant this trio is. I think they're the smartest trio in basketball, and I just
100%.
I love they're so far ahead of, you know, the other players, their opponents. They are one step ahead, it feels like. And with Steph, man, last thing I want to say on this, you were talking about how hard it is to defend him and the different looks that the Grizzlies were giving him. He really just does need that split second, man. Like, if you stop some of these shots that he's making where he'll drive and he'll kick in that moment of hesitation where the defense will look him off, that's all he needs. He needs that sliver of space, and he can just get a shot off. I really hope that I try to be as unbiased as possible, but I really am going to be rooting hard for the Warriors in round one, man. I just like that they finally got Steph, that second superstar. I think Jimmy is such an elite fit alongside him and Draymond, and how he works on both sides of the ball. And again, so much pressure has been alleviated off of Steph. He's got more help than he's had in a long time. I'm excited, and I'm going to be rooting for the Dubs in these playoffs, man. I want to see them go on a bit of a run.
If we get Lakers-Warriors, that would be electric. That would be must-see TV.
ESPN is going to be insufferable.
That's actually kind of a good point. I don't know, man. I'm just going to be excited for every first-round matchup in the West. I mean, they're all going to be sick. The one thing that I will nitpick from this Steph game, and just from Steph at this point, I mean, We've talked about it some in terms of his diminished ability to get to the rim. I also think you do see in this game his finishing has regressed from where it was a few years ago. I've always thought that Steph was a very underrated finishing guard, but inside 8 feet this year, he's only shooting 56%. Last year, that was 59%. 2 years ago, that was 64%. So that is an area in which he's taken a bit of a step back. But hey, he had 50 and was absolutely incredible this entire game. Let's talk about the other team, Logan, involved in this one, who was on the losing end. The Grizzlies are now 0-3 since firing Taylor Jenkins. What have you made of how they've looked in that stretch? And now that we have some more information that's come to light about the Jenkins firing, how are you feeling about that move now?
Yeah, so I mean, it seems like it has everything to do with Ja Morant. And I think you've seen that reflected in how the Grizzlies have been playing recently. I still just don't get it, man. I still don't. I can't wrap my head around it. And I don't want to beat a dead horse here and, regurgitate all the points that we made initially. But the timing of it all is still what blows my mind, because Taylor Jenkins is the winningest coach in Grizzlies history. I mentioned this stat last time we talked about it. They have the 10th best record or win percentage, in the NBA since he took over as head coach among all 30 teams. And he got 2 cracks at the playoffs with young superstars that, in my opinion, hadn't developed to the point that where they're at right now. Like, I just wanted Jenkins to get one more opportunity with a healthy Ja Morant, which we were going to get, with a team with supreme depth, which is what I still think they have, with a chess piece that I think changes a lot of the schematics for Memphis, and a Zach Edey. And more importantly, a guy that has really developed and rounded out his game in a way that I'm more confident in than ever in Triple J. And so I just wanted Taylor to get one more crack at this. If Taylor Jenkins had fallen on his face and this Memphis team had fallen apart in the first round, then you do it, and then we go, all right, well, they're just restarting. They want a new look. They want a fresh start. And that, I feel like, was justifiable. The timing of this is still what just blows me. And it's not that the Grizzlies hadn't been great post-All-Star break. Like, they had been struggling defensively, and I think that's a real criticism that you can give to Memphis. The thing that doesn't sit right about me is the gripe. It's the timing, and it's the focal point of the gripe, because it seems to be Ja-centric, and it seems to be that he wanted more of the keys to the offense. What doesn't sit right with me about that is the fact that the offense had been better than it had ever been in the half court. So I just thought he was getting blamed for shortcomings that aren't really his fault. Like, the system that they implemented offensively this season, inarguably, I think, has been working. 5 out, less screens, more space, more isolation basketball, more one-on-one, had led to better results. And so if you're firing him because of the offense, that's just what I don't get. Sure, Ja, I think, had been suffering because of it. I think Ja had been a little bit more ineffective. He's better with a runway. Who cares? I don't care about Ja's individual numbers. I care about how great the offense was in totality and how much better the half-court offense was in general. And I thought we had seen real improvement there this season. It just doesn't hold water to me, man. I don't want to come out here and call Ja a coach killer or do any of that, any of the tropes that we normally get into, but it just seems a little bit premature, and I don't think the gripes are founded in a lot of reality. And I heard some other gripes about him playing bench guys more. I don't even get how that's a criticism of Memphis either, because it's all right, maybe you want them out there in tighter games so your best players are on the court more, but to me it's for a team that has dealt with this many injuries to star players, I don't mind you giving the bench minutes, because it's still this is the regular season. I want my guys healthy and available when it becomes playoff time. I don't know, man. I think Memphis is probably cooked. There's, like our old friend PTG always used to say, man, when there's smoke, there's fire, and I think Memphis is about to go up in flames, man. I don't see them getting out of the first round. I think there's a lot of drama and a lot of stuff that is going to seep into their performance on the floor, and I don't think it's been successful in the 3 games post-Taylor Jenkins, man. So, yeah. I think Memphis just prematurely shot their wad. I think they should have waited for this one.
If you're any of those top 4 seeds and you're looking at the teams in the 5-8 range, and you have the Warriors, who are 18-2 with Steph and Jimmy. You have the Clippers, who have been playing elite basketball with Kawhi back in form. You have the Timberwolves, who have been playing their best basketball of the year and have been certainly improved offensively. Like, who do you want to see? I think you want to see Memphis right now.
Memphis scares me the least, and I think Memphis is also the most exploitable out of the bunch.
Yeah. And I do think that we've seen a shift in their play style already. Ja's pick and roll volume has started to go back up. In fact, that had actually happened throughout March. And this really doesn't surprise me. Like, even before the Jenkins firing, I was saying throughout the year, like, once you get to the playoffs, they're going to revert to some extent to put the ball in Ja's hands, let him run more pick and roll. And we've seen that now. Since March 1st, he's been running 14 pick and rolls per game. That's a significant increase from his average of under 11 per game before then. And last night, he ran 20 pick and rolls, which is tied for his most in any game this season. Now, I do think it's worth noting that 20 pick and rolls is like what Ja would run in an average game a couple years ago. So they haven't totally gone back to like their play style of previous years, but they have adjusted from fully buying into their system this year, which, as you mentioned, has been built on playing deliberately with pace, attacking advantages wherever you find them, moving the ball more, much less pick and roll, more mismatch attacking, more isolation for especially guys like Jaren Jackson Jr. Now they're doing a little bit more of that. Let's put the ball in Ja's hands and have him run a lot of pick and roll, which I thought worked really well last night. I thought that he was phenomenal last night, but we've also seen that historically, Ja being that sort of heliocentric engine has not led to good team offensive results in the half court. They had consistently been a bottom quartile half court offense in previous years. This was the year when they made the change in their offensive identity that they improved to being an average half court offense. And so when I see the rationale that is being put forward for why Taylor Jenkins was fired, a lot of it just does not make sense to me, because there was an article that came out in this Memphis paper that I read, I think later the day of the firing. And one of the things that they cited was, well, the biggest priority for this year was to solve the half court offense. And they haven't done that. But like, they significantly improved your half court offense by taking a big risk, by overhauling your system, by taking the ball out of your best offensive player's hands more. That worked. Taylor Jenkins isn't a miracle worker, though. Like, he can't just suddenly make you an elite half-court offense if you don't have the personnel to do that, which they don't. And then the report comes out in the ESPN article yesterday about Ja being displeased with having fewer touches, being less of that high-volume pick-and-roll player that he had been in previous years. And, like, that didn't surprise me. I was anticipating something like that coming to light. I just think that that's selfish of Ja. Like, obviously, Ja has not been at his best individually in the Grizzlies' new system because Ja is a bad off-ball player. He is up there for the worst off-ball star in basketball. He's a terrible catch and shooter. He is not somebody who is super willing to move without the ball. So his individual production has suffered, but the team as a whole has been better. So Ja complaining is not good justification for firing your head coach with 9 games left in the regular season. And I understand that things were sort of building to a boiling point in Memphis just because you go back to 2022 and you're this young team and you're the 2 seed in the Western Conference. And then you come back in 2023 and you're the 2 seed in the Western Conference. And now you're back and you're fully healthy this year and you feel like it's the most talented team you had. And like, in totality, you have nothing to show for it in the playoffs. You've won 1 series. And I get that they were going on a bit of a skid in March, even though part of that happened when Ja was hurt. And overall, they're still above 500 without Ja this year, which I do think is a testament to the totality of this team and what Taylor Jenkins was able to get out of a lot of his depth pieces in this team defensively. So I understand that, like, they wanted to take that leap and that there was urgency. You saw that this past offseason. They fired a bunch of Taylor Jenkins' assistants. But again, I would just say that they are overestimating their own personnel. I think that they are basically expecting themselves to be now in these title conversations, and they're saying, we don't think that Taylor Jenkins was the coach to get us over the hump. I just don't think you have the talent to get over the hump. I think that Ja is too flawed as an offensive number one because you've seen the results that it leads to when you let him run the show, but you've also seen his limitations when you try to lead to a more balanced offensive approach. Triple J, I think, has had a phenomenal season. I still really worry about his ability to be as effective in a postseason when he's seeing a bunch of doubles and he's being tested as a playmaker. Like, these are not coaching things. These are player things. These are personnel things. And that's why I feel like this was just a big misstep. And if you were going to try to change direction, you should have done it in the offseason, because some of the things that I've seen cited too, like the Memphis newspaper article that I read talked about him not playing Zach Edey enough. Like, that's grounds for firing because you wanted to implement Zach Edey in more of these like jumbo lineups. And the Triple J Edey lineups have been really good, but I think that playing Edey is a very matchup dependent thing. Like we were just talking about it with the Warriors, but if you look at the Boston game before that, Edey only plays 13 minutes because he just can't be on the floor against a team that has a legitimate 5-out attack like that, and both of their bigs are highly skilled out in space and are elite shooters. Like, he just can't be out there. So that's crazy to me. I saw them legitimately mention frustration building in the locker room because of examples such as the fact that he sent Gigi Jackson down to the G League. Like, what? Who cares? I don't know. It's just all such a weird situation, and I think it's bad process, and it just feels like a team that has stagnated, and their star player is upset, and they're desperate. But I think they're overestimating what they're truly capable of, and I think that they're overestimating how great that star player really is by putting Ja on such a pedestal and viewing everything through the lens of, like, how do we build around him? How do we make him happy? Because you were having better results going more away from him, and Triple J is your best player now, and I don't even think it's a conversation.
I don't think it is either, and, you know, it's hard because if Ja painted it as, like, you know, Jenkins or me, I understand choosing Ja because Ja's don't grow on trees. You're not just going to find a guy like that. But I think, like you said, it's ignoring some of the real flaws that he has in being a legitimate ceiling raiser for this team. Like you said, like his catch and shooting, his legitimate ability to space the floor. Like, I don't get it. Kleiman, the general manager, said, urgency is a core principle of ours. My expectations are clarity of direction. That seems pretty ambiguous and vague to me. And again, it's like urgency. Urgency to what? To get bounced in the second round? Like, look, dude, you're not beating OKC this year. Like, I think it's, like you said, man, I think it's a gross, like, misrepresentation of their talent and where they're at as a franchise right now. I just don't think you're in that contending tier, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that for being there right now. It takes time. It takes, you know, and that's my thing is it's like, I don't know, maybe there would have been a trade on the table. Maybe there still is a trade on the table to get back. Like, that's my thing, though, is it's not a, like you said, dude, it's not a coaching thing. It's not a, I'm going to plug this guy in. It's a talent thing to me where it's like we still have more moves to make infrastructure and roster-wise before we should elevate ourselves into that contending tier. So why are we rushing the coaching deal, you know? Like I said, maybe if you do that deal in the offseason and you're confident in one of his assistants stepping up and maximizing that talent, make that move then. I still think your roster is much too far away to be a contender, and I guess him as a general manager, I guess he doesn't feel that way. Bottom line, I don't think this solves any of their problems.
Yeah, I've always felt like Memphis is one high-end piece away from really contending because they don't have that number one on the roster on a title team. It's not Triple J, even though I think that he is excellent. It's not Ja. And so if they are going to try to contend, like, they have to either get that number one or they have to be so talented in terms of their top four in the aggregate, which means you got to get another, like, star level wing in here. And they haven't done that. Like, they've never been remotely aggressive in terms of free agent acquisitions or in terms of trades.
I mean, they tried stuff, I think, last offseason, but it all fell apart.
Yeah, but, like, what's the biggest thing that they've tried?
I mean,
what's the biggest chance?
They tried
Marcus
to sign
Smart?
Draymond last offseason. I think they were in the Bridges
do
sweepstakes.
not. There is no try. Yeah, okay, if they had gotten to Mikal Bridges,
but like you
that
said,
would
like,
have been valuable.
But like you said, I mean, if you really wanted to do that, you could have been hyper aggressive and made the moves.
Right, we're talking about 4 years now where you've been basically swimming in place. Like, at some point, there's some deal there that you can make if you are actually trying to be aggressive, if you're committed to doing so, and they haven't done it. So that 100% would have been my inclination. I would look at personnel. I would look at getting that high-end offensive wing before I would have looked at coaching. Part of this is probably that they really like Izalo, who they paid a lot of money to come in as an assistant this past year and who now is their interim head coach and I think is probably going to hold down that job. But he's very highly regarded. The interesting thing is, like, his whole reputation is being like a pick and roll offensive savant. So now are you trying to remodel your offense into a very pick and roll centric attack?
But it's so funny because it's like there's 9 games left when you do.
I know.
Like, come on, bro.
Exactly. Like, either way, it was going to be a move for the future. So I do feel really weird about Memphis right now.
Just imagine like a football team. I mean, and it happens. Granted, it happens. Imagine a football team going, all right, we're going to tear everything down in week 14. We're winning the championship this year. It's like, dude, that ship has sailed, my friend.
Yeah, does not tend to work out. So we'll see what they look like.
Carson, can you remember, real quick before we get off this topic, you and your big basketball brain, can you ever remember a team firing a head coach like anywhere close, like say close to All-Star break or post-All-Star break, and them improving afterwards?
Not meaningfully. I mean, the example that I think of a team firing their head coach mid-season and that being a huge turning point for them is the 2006 Heat, who fire Stan Van Gundy. Pat Riley takes over. They win the title. But they did that like 20 games into the season. You don't do it 73 games into the season.
Yeah, and I guess the only other close one I could think of is like the Nets, but even that kind of crashed. And, you know, with Nash when KD and them wanted him bounced. But again, that's like a...
Yeah, but that didn't work out for them.
It didn't work out, but it also even made more sense than this, right? He clashed with all the stars. They wanted somebody else. Like, that at least made a little more sense.
Yeah, but that resulted in them blowing things up mid-season. Like, they traded KD and Kyrie that year, yeah.
Oh, I was thinking that was the year they were in the playoffs against Milwaukee. Nash was still there for that.
That was, yeah, Nash's first year there.
Then damn, nothing came out of that anyway, man. Like, it's just... It's bad process, in my opinion.
It's very bad process. I agree. The finals are here, and the only thing for sure is it's the last time to bet on college basketball this season. It's been an amazing ride to get here, full of the unexpected happening. Maybe there will be more. Get in on all the action, expected and unexpected, with DraftKings Sportsbook. With live betting, exclusive content, promos, and parlays, DraftKings is the ultimate college basketball destination for March.
Ready to make your first bet? Check out the matchups and pick a team to win. It's that simple. And if it's your first time, here's something special just for you. New customers bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets instantly.
Bet the unexpected with DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code NERDS. That's code NERDS for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings, the crown is yours. You know who's got good process, though, Logan, is the Boston Celtics. They have won 14 of their last 15 games. What do you take away from this dominant stretch of basketball we've seen from them? And do you think that they are even better than they were last year when they won the title?
I do think they're better than last year for a few reasons. One, Jayson Tatum is better. I think we've seen him really improve as a playmaker and a ball handler this year. I think he is more reliable as a scorer. Granted, I said both of these things last year going into the playoff run, that I was more confident in him as a scorer, but I really am in a different way this year in the fact that he can do it at all three levels, as a post scorer where I think he's gotten better, as a shooter where I think he's more reliable, and getting downhill. And I think his handle has some to do with that as well. But I really think we've seen him take a massive growth as a playmaker and as a ball handler. And so I think that gives him a higher baseline in normal games, regardless of his scoring impact. But I think he's going to be much better as a scorer this year in these playoffs. I think they need him to be better as a scorer in this year's playoffs. Second reason, I presume that Kristaps Porzingis is going to be more available for this playoff run. He only played in 2 series in last year's playoff run, was super effective when he played against Miami and Dallas, but didn't get a ton of burn. If Porzingis is available for all 4 series, that takes your team up a notch. 3, Peyton Pritchard is way better. I mean, this is a guy who sure was impactful last year. Peyton Pritchard's one of the best 6 men in basketball. I'm so impressed, man. Like, I thought Peyton Pritchard was going to be a good NBA player. I didn't think he was going to be this. The guy is an elite jump shooter, but how crafty and strong he is for such a small guard. The guy's got great balance. He's got a really great center of gravity, and he's so good at bullying guys and playing against bigger wings and bigger guards where he can get down low and use his physicality to serve buckets. And shout out to other bench Caucasians there in Boston. I trust Sam Hauser and Luke Cornett more. Like, I liked Hauser and Cornett last year. Those guys are way better. I thought Cornett was going to be unplayable. He's not. He's a legitimately good rim protector, and he's a good lob threat and roll man. Like, it's a simple roll. Luke Cornett does it at a high level, and that's a G League guy. Look, I'm going to be honest. I always talk about G League guys I believed in. If it was Isaiah Hartenstein, if it was... I've never been more wrong about 2 big, gangly white dudes in the G League than Luke Cornett and Jay Huff. I took two looks at those guys. I said they'll never play in the league.
Racist.
It might have been. I was just wrong. I was just wrong. Cornett is a legitimate NBA player, rotation guy, and he can give you good minutes, especially in a situation like this where he's not overtasked. He's playing a simple role. He's doing his job at a high level. And the same goes for Hauser. Hauser is a legitimately good floor spacer and defender. I love watching teams every night, and the commentators bring it up every single time. It's so funny to me. Oh, these guys think Sam Hauser's a real weak point on this defense. They go at him, and then they go, he's actually a really good defender. So, I don't think this is like a remarkably different team. But I think all of their guys are way better. There's just natural progression. This is a team that was historically great last year, had more blowouts than any team in NBA history, was just running up the score on teams. And I think they are primed to be even better than last year. So, yeah, I think this juggernaut in Boston is even better. And I don't think we've seen guys have crazy regression. Al Horford can still move his feet and defend well in space against guys. He can still space the floor. Drew Holiday is still an elite defender. Derek White has gotten even better. I didn't even mention Derek White. Like, Boston just has such a spoil of riches, man, and they're hitting their stride at the right point.
Yeah, I've been saying basically all year that I think that Boston is actually, when all things are said and done, going to be better this year than last year, even if the regular season record doesn't show it, because of some of the key improvements of specific players that you mentioned. In this specific stretch, there's 2 dudes who I want to shout out, and they're the 2 key bigs for Boston. Al Horford is averaging 14 points, 8.5 boards, and 3.5 assists on 61% true shooting in this stretch. I am very adamantly on the Horford as a Hall of Famer train now.
Easy.
It's so rare in the scope of NBA history for a player to have the sort of winning impact that he does at his age. And by the way, he's had it for the entire time that he's been in the league. But the guy's almost 39. He's still one of the most switchable bigs on the planet. He's still one of the best 3-point shooting bigs on the planet. He's still one of the better passing bigs on the planet. Still such a valuable player. And you know how I feel about KP, but he's been balling since he came back. And the Celtics are 7-0 since his return when he plays. He's giving you 22, 8, and 3 on 67% true shooting. The 3-point shooting has been phenomenal. The mismatch attacking has been phenomenal. But I've been impressed by his passing out of doubles as well. I think that he's been pretty selfless in this stretch, looking to create opportunities for his teammates. And with those 2 on the floor, the Celtics have just been crushing people. They have a plus 12 net rating with the 2 bigs out there. Opposing teams shoot just 51% on 2-pointers. The rim protection they have with those 2 on the floor is phenomenal. And at the same time, remarkably, you're simultaneously maxing out your rim protection and your 3-point shooting because they're both just marksmen and have been consistently excellent 3-point shooters. So that's a weapon that I'm really excited to see from them in the playoffs, those double big lineups. But big picture, Tatum is clearly better as a playmaker, as a scorer, as a processor, And like you said, I'd be shocked if he had a slump like he did last year in the playoffs again this year. Porzingis is back and is their second best player, in my opinion, and it's just a walking mismatch for basically every single team in the league. Their depth is clearly better. Pritchard is better. Hauser is better. Cornette is better. I do think there are a couple of things that you could probably expect to be worse in the playoff run this year. The biggest one that stands out to me is Jaylen Brown, just because he played the best basketball of his life in the playoffs last year and has had a rough year, has been really bad as a jump shooter from mid-range and beyond the arc. And I have to say, you watch the Celtics game against the Grizzlies, and I do think their offense is just smoother without Jaylen on the floor. I think that the ball movement is more seamless, and I think that you are able to have 5 really high-level three-point shooters on the floor, whereas Jaylen just has not been that this year. So I don't expect him to be as good as he was in last year's playoffs. Drew Holiday hasn't had the best regular season. I'm really not too worried about him, and he's been playing really well in these last few games. His 3-ball is back. And that's another thing, the Celtics three-point shooting went through a little bit of a lull midway through this regular season when they were dropping some games, when they had that stretch where they basically went 10-10 over some 20-game span. But since then, they've been fantastic shooting again. I think that they have the most aggregate three-point shooting talent of any team that we've ever seen. So I do think that the three-point shooting that we've been getting from them in this last 15, 20 games is the three-point shooting that you should expect from them. So they haven't necessarily improved in every way, but in total, I do think that they're even better than last year's team. And they're just a flawless basketball team, man. They really, really are. They are absurdly talented, and it's no surprise that they are just blowing everybody out right now and dominating the league. I thought that the panic that we saw earlier in the year, some people panicking, it was always kind of silly.
A little bit of that championship hangover.
And just some bad three-point shooting luck.
Yeah, true. And Mazzulla's a psycho. I love Mazzulla, man.
Yeah. Very good basketball coach. I want to talk about one guy, Logan, who's been playing really well as of late, who also had a slump earlier in the season and was catching more flack for it, for sure. That's Paolo Banchero. With his play as of late, has he alleviated any concerns you had about him or Orlando from earlier in the year?
Him, yes. Orlando, not so much. Paolo, over his last 15 games, has given you 30 points, 8 boards, and 4 assists on 49, 34, 81 splits with a true shooting percentage just south of 60, with over a steal a game. The thing that I have loved the most about Paolo and what instills the most confidence about him for me moving forward is his physicality and aggressiveness. The guy's getting to the line nearly 9 times a game. 8.6 free throw attempts per game over the last 15 to be exact. I love watching him utilize his back to the basket game and attacking mismatches. My problem with Paolo and this Orlando Magic offense, though, is one, Paolo still lives on a really tough shot diet, and he's still not a good jump shooter or a catch and shooter. And so anytime he's settling for something that's outside of the paint, I'm not super confident in going in. And off ball, he's not super impactful. Defenders will be really content to leave him alone on an island and let him shoot catch and shoot jumpers, which statistically for the defense, he's actually been worse over his last 10 games than 15. He's actually under 30% from deep over the last 10 games. Teams are content to just let him shoot. And it's just really, really bad spacing in Orlando, with Paolo included. Over that same 15-game stretch, Orlando's 23rd in three-point percentage at 35%. The only team in the playoff field below them over the last 15 games is Cleveland. They're tied 18th in offensive rating over the last 15 games, 113.5. The only team in the playoff field below them is New York. And the worst number about Orlando is they're number 21 in half-court offense. There is no team in the playoff field below them over the last 15 games in terms of half-court offense. And so I like what I've seen from Paolo. I like the physicality. I like the aggression. I like him getting downhill more and settling less for jump shots. But he's still not a good jump shooter. He still is a limited playmaker. And I still think he could weaponize his physicality and aggressiveness more against smaller guys, where he will settle for those back-to-basket jumpers where I want to see him just trying to get to the rim more. But it's really impressive that he's doing this in this offensive situation. I think it's not an optimal offensive situation in Orlando. There's not a ton of creation alongside him. There's not a ton of shooting alongside him. So I think it's really impressive that he's been able to produce like this in such a hellish offensive situation. So I'm still encouraged about Paolo long term. I still think he's going to figure it out and be a really, really effective basketball player. But as it pertains to Orlando's ceiling this season, I mean, I still think they're primed to be a really limited offense, and I'm not super confident in them achieving anything.
I agree with you totally. I mean, does this change anything for Orlando? No. I mean, they're going to get easily bounced in a first-round series this year. They are the worst offense in the playoff field in either conference. But this has been an awesome stretch of basketball to see from Paolo. You mentioned the production since March 1st. I mean, the guy's giving you 38 and 4 on 60% true shooting. That's impressive. That has to stand out. And in that stretch, he's been 49% for mid-range, so the shot making there has been very good. The three ball has been better, 34% overall, and it's not a great number, but he's had a worse three-point shooting season than that overall. That stuff is all very good, but what I love is 9 free throw attempts per game in that time, 6 restricted area attempts per game compared to 4.7 per game before that stretch. That's the stuff that I always want to see from Paolo. He is 6'10", 250. He is built to just be an absolute bulldozer getting downhill to the rim. He draws fouls at a crazy high rate when he does so. And that's when he's at his best as a basketball player, when he is fully leveraging and maximizing his crazy physical advantages. Yes, he can do the wing stuff and he can have the dazzling stretches of shot making and footwork and whatnot, but he's also going to have stretches where he runs really cold there. And on average, he's not an efficient jump shooter. What I need to see from him is him getting to the rim relentlessly. And we've been seeing more of that as of late. He is just an absolute downhill monster when he wants to be. Has been really impressive as an isolationist overall this year. I mean, super high ISO volume, and he's an 82nd percentile isolation scorer. Very difficult to deal with on an island, and I do think it's so important to acknowledge the situation that he's doing this in, because I said this earlier in the year when everybody was freaking out about Paolo and some people who hated him were doing their victory laps on him. Like, it was so reminiscent of the Cade discourse last year when people got way too low on him. Like, you have to understand the context. Now, what Cade was dealing with last year was next level nightmare hellscape stuff. But the Magic have the worst spacing in the league this year. They're 30th in threes made. They're 30th in three-point percentage. They're a 7th percentile spot-up team. So you have to understand the sort of crowds that he's dealing with on drives, how mucked up the spacing is. And I do think that that is part of why he settles at the rate that he does. It doesn't excuse it, but it explains part of it. And I do want to see him continue to be more insistent on getting downhill, not settle as much. And also, he just has to make a solid percentage of his jumpers, which he's been doing as of late. But this year, on the whole, you would like to see him be more efficient as a jump shooter. But I've been very, very encouraged by this stretch, because earlier in the year, I said, I'm a Paolo optimist. I'm a believer. Like, I think that he has such incredible physical traits and is still so young that, like, you have to bet on him figuring things out. But also, like, I acknowledge this is not nothing like his struggles at that point. And there is stuff that he has to improve upon in terms of decision-making, shot selection, being a more efficient offensive player. And he still has to become more consistent with all that stuff. But when you see a stretch like this, you're just like, yeah, there's not a lot of dudes who can do what this guy does on the planet when he's at his best.
He's also really good in transition, too, which I think is...
Yes, absolutely. Well, absolutely. He's just an elite athlete in the full court, and I wish that Orlando played faster. That's another thing that bogs their offense down, and they've had a horrible offense this year. It's not just the total lack of shooting. They play at such a slow pace. They don't get a lot of those easy, quick offense opportunities in transition.
Man. Like, I think they could do damage there.
Yeah, it's been a disappointing year for them offensively overall. I mean, they're 27th in offensive rating. That's really bad. But The two things that I've always been encouraged about with Paolo, that even when he has the efficiency issues and the ugly on-off splits, make me somebody who still believes in him. He just has a very rare athletic profile, his combination of size and power and speed. And he's a really, really good passer. And I think is going to be an elite playmaking forward. Already averages 5 assists per game. But I'm not going to say that he's a super consistently great decision maker, but the passing ability, the angles available to him at his size, his ability to make some of those lay down passes. I think he's an impressive interior passer. I think he's an impressive kick out passer. Like, the ceiling there is so high that you just figure if he maxes out his ability to get to the rim, if he maxes out his playmaking, and if he's just a solid jump shooter,
I think
like that's got to be a fringe top 10 player.
I think he's going to be a really good. I think he's going to be a really good mid-range shooter one day. The reason I say that, I just love his footwork and how he works at a triple threat when he initiates. Like, I just think he's really sound there. He'll take some really tough ones sometimes. Like, the ones that kill me the most are when, and I get it, like, it's a bad offensive situation, so naturally you're going to have to settle for some of these jumpers sometimes. It's when he's fully back to the basket and he's doing work with his footwork, and he'll do like a full 180 jump shot where his, like, when he starts his jumper, he is fully back to the basket. And it's like, all right, well, Paolo, you're 6'10". I would rather you just reset, get balanced, and then just shoot over the top. I think he could.
I totally agree.
I think he could make life easier on himself sometimes on those shots. And the thing I was saying about the playmaking, it's not his passing ability, it's his court vision, where sometimes Paolo will get to the middle of the floor at the nail or the elbow, and he will draw 2 or 3, and that's when I'm like, Paolo, the guy's there. He's on the wing. He's open.
Yeah.
Just fire a pass, and he'll take a contested midi. It's little stuff like that, but when that's all you need to refine, I'm really confident. And I said on record before, I thought Paolo was going to be an elite jump shooter. I don't know if Paolo will ever be an elite three-point shooter or catch-and shooter, but I think he's going to be a really good mid-range shooter. That's where I see him being the most effective.
A lot of people call him this generation's Melo, and they mean that in a derogatory way.
I think he's going to be better.
Yeah, he just has a couple of high-end abilities that Melo does not. I mean, like, the passing already is on a different level and is just going to continue to improve. And Melo never had the overall blend of athletic traits that Paolo does right now, right? Like, young Nuggets Melo was super explosive and bouncy. And then you have Knicks Melo, who was super strong and thick and powerful out of the post. But Paolo is like closer to blending the high-end athleticism with the high-end strength and just has more size than Melo did.
Don't forget what he did to Indiana, man. He babied them boys.
Right, that's the thing. Like, he just has to not play like Melo, because a lot of the times he plays like Nick Melo. He wants to be jab step, let's see what I can get with my footwork out of the post and do a tough fadeaway and a lot of tough mid-range jumpers, and like that's just not the shot diet he should be living off of. So that's going to be like the biggest determining factor with Paolo, honestly, is just his mindset, his approach, his decision making, because Lord knows he has the ability to get to the rim at a crazy rate and create so much efficient offense for himself and his teammates when he does so. The question is just how much of this is situation inducing him to take some of these tougher shots, how much of this is him being a young player and how much can he improve on it versus how much of it is kind of ingrained in him, because shot selection is something that always can improve, but for some guys it doesn't necessarily. But I am a believer in Paolo. I put out a poll today. This was crazy to me, dude. Who would you rather build around, Paolo or Cade? What do you think the results were?
I would have voted. Damn, that's close. I think I would have voted for Paolo. I'm going to say, if it was me, I would guess that, like, if I thought they were level-headed, I'd say this would be about 50-50 because I think they're close. I'm going to guess with what's been happening this year, it's probably closer to like 70-30 Cade.
82-18 for Cade.
I would still take Paolo. Where do you land on that?
It's just so funny to me, man, because like people's opinions swing so violently.
Well, like last year, if you had asked that question, it probably would have been Paolo.
The exact opposite. Might have been 90-10 Paolo, dude. People were posting the videos. Who does this look like? And everybody, I guess, wants you to say LeBron talking about Paolo, like saying this guy's the next face of the league. And people were saying, oh, Cade's actually a bust. Cade's not good. Like, it's just so funny to me because we had this conversation at some point midway through last season, and I was like, I would slightly take Paolo over Cade. My opinions on those two guys are actually very similar today to what they were a year ago. I would still slightly prefer Paolo. I think that Cade is the better basketball player right now, to be clear. I just think that Paolo still has more upside to grow into because the physical gifts that he has been given are so rare. Having a guy with that sort of size and strength and skill upside as he continues to refine it and become more efficient appeals to me just a little bit more than Cade, who I think is a guy with that floor-raising skill set, but can he get as much of the easy stuff for himself as Paolo? Not nearly. Can he finish at the rate at the rim that Paolo can? Not nearly. And that's something where I just think his ceiling isn't quite as high as Paolo's. Paolo also not a super impactful defensive player, but I feel like with both of these guys, most of their value is coming on the offensive end, and that's kind of where I'm judging them most. And like, could Paolo improve defensively? Yeah, I think that he could. I think that he has the tools to get a bit better there. So Orlando for this year, still screwed for the playoffs. Still going to get destroyed.
You know, and I know Paolo's going to be the initiator for him. I think they're going to have long-term to sacrifice some of this defense that they have and some of these other players around him for some guys with offensive skill. Because I feel like if you can get Paolo, the stereotypical stretch five that everybody brings up, if you could get like a Miles Turner that could space the floor at an even higher level than like a Wendell Carter, if you could get a really high-end guard where you could run maybe some because I think that's a huge area that hasn't been tapped into with Paolo is the stuff that he could do as in the two-man action as a roll man or potentially maybe even as a lob threat, right? I think if you get him a high-end guard that could create him easy looks, there's more there. And that's the most impressive part of this to me is that he's doing this with very little offensive skill around him.
Yeah, I think that both he and Franz and Orlando will be best served when they add another really high-end offensive player, particularly I think an elite playmaker, just an elite guard, period. If they get somebody who is a really high-end shooter and a really high-end passer.
I think the first guy I think of actually is, I mean, it's unattainable, but like a Darius Garland would be ideal, you know?
That would be absolutely sexual. Bro, we proposed that last offseason when it was more attainable. Now that's a dream, but maybe they get a book, right? And I think that would still be really beneficial for them. Yeah, I think that'd be phenomenal.
I mean, if they got anybody of that caliber.
Yeah, 100%. And I agree. They're going to have to trade in some of the defense and the depth to just become a serious playoff offense because they're not close to that.
I feel like if you could keep Suggs as like that point of attack guy, man, and move some other assets around, I'd really like it for Orlando. I don't want him to lose Suggsy, though. I like Suggs too much.
I know. I like him a lot, too. But at the end of the day, you might be willing to move off of him if that's what you got to do to make it happen. Just because I would be worried if last season was an outlier three-point shooting season for him because he was not shooting the ball so well from beyond the arc this year. And, you know, if he's not a high 30s three-point shooter.
I do think he's an all-defense caliber guard, though.
He is. And he is just a winner. He is the spiritual successor to Marcus Smart for this generation. Like, he is definitely a guy I want on my basketball team, but if I need to get off of his contract to make the money work, like, I could be willing to do that. But honestly, I don't know that they do because, like, they have a lot of mid-sized contracts. I'd certainly move off of KCP first. I don't know what they can really do with Jonathan Isaac.
Am I shooting too low with, like, an Andrew Nembhard? Is that
dream bigger. Dream bigger. I mean, like, that would be a starting point, but I'm talking about how do we get the Magic to be contenders, which I think they should be with the caliber of players in a vacuum at their age that Franz and Paolo are. And they still have some stuff to figure out in terms of their fit together. They both have to be more consistent, efficient offensive players. They both have to be more consistent jump shooters. They both have to be more consistently effective off ball. Like, the team as a whole has a ways to go, but I do really think those guys are both clearly all-star talents. I mean, Paolo's already been an all-star, even though I didn't think he deserved it, but he's going to get a lot better. Franz is going to make all-star teams. Franz probably would have made it if he had been healthy this year. So it's about putting the right pieces around those guys. That's going to do it for us here today, folks. Hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, the good news is there's plenty more Nerd Sesh content. You can find all of our full shows on our YouTube channel, talking NBA, talking NFL, and you can find all of our video essays and video breakdowns on our YouTube channel. You can also listen to all of our full episodes across all audio platforms. You can follow us across social, TikTok, Instagram at NerdSesh, Twitter at Nerd_Sesh to see clips from the show, graphics from the show, and all of our trivia content. And you can join our Discord if you want. That is linked at the link tree across our social media bios, as is our merch, which is also at breakingtea.com. So with that, as always, appreciate you guys. I've been Carson Brabber.
I have been Logan Camden.
And this was Nerd Sesh.